Hey everybody, welcome back to Divas Live with the Dating Divas, your guide to strengthening marriage one date at a time. I am Caroline, and as always, we have the lovely Amanda with us. Hello, Amanda. And
Hello.
today we actually have a lovely special guest. We have Catherine. Catherine, tell us what you do for the site a little bit.
Okay, so I do a bunch of things. I write posts sometimes. I do the newsletter every week, so you better go sign up for that. And and I do some other random things, some affiliate marketing stuff. Yeah, it's good. It's a bunch of random things. It's fun.
Kat's amazing. She does a ton, and she's just so smart and with it. I love it. So we're super excited to have her on our show today. We're going to be talking about ways to affair-proof your marriage. But before we get there, let's go over a couple of things. So one, we do these hangouts on YouTube live every second and fourth Tuesday of the month. And we always do it at 6:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So if you want to interact with us, if you're watching on YouTube, you can use the live chat box. I always forget which side. It's on one of these. And we're also following everyone on, or the hashtag Divas411 on Twitter. So you can reach us that way as well. And we're just really excited. So Amanda, we've got something coming out new from the store. And it's pretty exciting. It's kind of almost like a second edition of something that's like a tried and true favorite. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Well, Caroline, it's a text message 2.0 pack, and it has a whole bunch of text messages well, don't tell my husband, but there are pre-text messages and ideas that you can send to your spouse. So it's really great and creative, and they don't all have to come from your mind. So it's a pretty cool pack. Have you looked at it, Caroline, or Kat?
I have looked at it. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yes, yay! Yeah, well, definitely like the first installment. I need to go through the second one. But I'm super excited because if it's anything like the first one,
Yeah.
So. And then we've also had some pretty amazing posts these past 2 weeks. So we're just going to talk about a couple of them. The first one is 30 Ideas to Make Your Man Melt, which that title already, like I'm sold. Amanda, what did you think about that?
Right. It is a great title, and it is part of our Divas community on our site. There's an exclusive part of our site where paid members, get exclusive content that's not found anywhere else on our site. And this is one of those posts. So it's a lot of these really creative and thoughtful gifts, and some saucy and some not, for your spouse. They're pretty easy to put together, but you only get to have them if you're part of our community. And so you will find it there. But if you go to our site, datingdivas.com, you will find it there, and you'll find out all of the interesting, cool things that are on that site, all of these 30 melty things for your spouse, and then you'll learn more about our community as well. So it's good.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, I love the community because it really like tailors it to like your type of marriage. So if you're like empty nesters, you don't have kids anymore, or you're going through like a tough time in your marriage, like you will have content specifically for your marriage. So I love that because I'm never worried like I'm going to be looking and see something that's not applicable to me. So
Great.
I love that. We also have 101 Easter egg decorating ideas roundup. These pictures are beautiful. So if you're like me and you're just not very creative and you want to see maybe some ideas that you can copy or just some fun ideas to try, we've got Easter coming up so soon. Guys, I feel like so put off that Easter is in March.
I know. Okay, you're not the only one. I'm so lost.
No, you are not alone because I am just weirded out. It's supposed to be in April in my mind. But whatever. Also in March, we have St. Patrick's Day coming up. So we have St. Patrick's Day Lunchbox Love Notes. And these are super, super cute. Amanda, have you checked these out?
I did. I looked at them, and there's also, there's tons of all these cute little love notes, and there's some for your kids and some for your spouse, and there's also a Mad Lib note too that you can fill in with your nouns and your adjectives and stuff, and leave that for your spouse. So it's just it's so cute and it's so easy. You just print it out and stick it in their lunchbox, either your kids or your spouse, and then your super mom. Boom.
Done for you. Love it. I forgot we have another Easter one. It's like Easter egg decorating. It's a family night though, so it's what you need for family night with your kids and your spouse or any other extended family you want to invite over. I don't know. Easter I feel like is usually a time where you get everyone, right? And their mom.
Yes, everybody.
Yeah. We also have some really great content coming up in the next 2 weeks. We can't tell you everything, but we do have an after-hours Easter egg hunt, which is a little bit of a spicy post for you and your spouse, basically to kind of spice up the bedroom, have some alone time, which I'm really excited for because I feel like we have a lot of things like for Valentine's Day and anniversaries, but I don't know, so I'm excited for this for Easter. We also have indoor campfire night, which is my all-time favorite. I really do love, like, camping outside, but camping inside is just the best. I don't know. Anyone else?
There's no bugs, and the bed's a lot more comfortable.
Yeah.
Yes. Right? We also have 101 moving tips and hacks, which is always just great to know whether you're moving or not, whether you're helping someone else move, or you're thinking you might be moving soon. So they're amazing. So that's coming up here pretty soon. But let's move on to how to affair-proof your marriage. Guys, I think this is such an important issue because I feel like oftentimes, whether it be like the media or society, we kind of portray like love happens and sometimes people just fall out of love and that's why marriages don't work anymore and people get divorced. And obviously there are tons of reasons why people separate, but I think a lot of it could be alleviated by having, these types of important discussions with each other. And I know that you guys, feel strongly about this topic as well. So let's kind of just jump right in. Guys, why do you feel like, maybe Kat, we'll start with you. Why do you feel like it's so important to think about how to safeguard your marriage from any like potential physical or emotional affair? If that makes sense.
Okay, so this is something I feel really strongly about. I think that if you approach your marriage from like a defense point of view, so if you're like, okay, well, I'm going to defend this rather than just like, you can strengthen it, yes, and that's equally as important, but you also have to defend it. And you have to think about things after you're married that you never would have thought of before you were married that really didn't click for me and my husband until like a few years in, and we're like, oh, like, we gotta be careful. Like, there's a lot of people out there who want to bring you down and who don't want to see you be happily married. And so you have to really defend it and really, sometimes I put together this post a while ago, and as I was putting it together, I thought, I wonder what kind of feedback I'm going to get from this, whether people will think this is like so old-fashioned. And and then I realized I don't care what people think because this is important. You have to protect your marriage, and you have to take precautions that maybe will seem a little crazy, but they aren't crazy. The world is crazy, and you have to protect your marriage from it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like, I don't know, I think sometimes we feel that nothing will ever come along to like hurt your relationship. But like Kat was saying, like some people don't care if someone's married or not, or they, or maybe they're just negative about your relationship in general or whatever it is. So anyone have ideas of like important things that we can do to strengthen our marriage?
Well, yeah, of course.
Okay, we'll go over to you first.
So, I think one of the most important things, so social media is everywhere. And that can either be something that can really strengthen your marriage or it can hurt your marriage. And I think you have to be really aware of that. So for me, in my experience, I had some exes on social media. And then when I got married, it was kind of like, well, what now? like I think a lot of married couples kind of go through that. So you have to kind of decide, first of all, what your rules are about that. And I think that probably the number one thing you need to do is be really clear and set boundaries, set communications, set things that say, okay, so if I get a message from not from the opposite gender, like a private message, this is what we're going to do. Like, I'm going to tell you about it. We can read it together. I'll let you read it. And it may seem crazy, but really, it's showing that you value your marriage. And so I think you have to be really clear about how you want to work social media. Some people unfriend exes altogether. Some people just unfollow them. Some people just don't do anything. And whatever works for you and your marriage. But you have to decide what is your future, what is your past, and what is your future. And I think that's something important to remember. And then if something does happen, how are you going to approach that together? And you need to plan for it. You need to prepare for the worst because it might happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like, or sometimes even just random people, because anyone can, at least to my understanding, anyone can private message you. So they don't even have to be your friend on Facebook. So I love having that plan in place, even if, say you've gone through and deleted and blocked all exes or whatever. Having that plan in place, because that stuff can still happen. I don't know. What do you think, Amanda?
I feel like we've all had that uncomfortable moment where you feel like a person from the past has approached you or has approached your spouse and you feel uncomfortable about it. And being able to open up to your spouse about that and have an open conversation of what makes you comfortable and what makes you uncomfortable. And my husband early on we had to have that conversation because people from the past were still making contact, and I felt it was inappropriate. And so we were able to sit down and talk about it, and now they're not friends anymore on social media. And maybe I sound like a bad guy about it, but it was something that I felt really strongly about, that I felt was threatening to our relationship, and he was pretty understanding about it. But I think that moves on to a really great point. Another point of way to protect your marriage is to not be alone. And some people, let me finish the sentence and then I'll explain. Don't be alone with someone of the opposite gender. And some people think this is a very old-fashioned rule. And sometimes it can't be avoided. And my husband's an attorney, and he has time in his office where he's alone but because we've talked about this, we know that this is something that happens. He tries to leave the door open as often as possible. So the person down the hall can hear him and knows what's happening in his office and knows that there's a woman in there, and she knows that everyone else can hear, and so forth and so forth. And that's just one situation, but in those private messaging on Facebook or on your phone or email, I think that also goes with having a private, intimate conversation with somebody of the opposite sex. And that is kind of a slippery slope. Probably no harm would be intended, and it would be perfectly fine, but it's like avoid the very appearance that something bad is happening. If you're having an intimate conversation with somebody of the opposite sex on Facebook or in your office or in your email, what's happening there and what could be happening there? What could that eventually lead to, and how to protect yourself against those situations? What do you guys think? Do you think that this is an old-fashioned kind of a rule, or what?
First of all, let me apologize for the background noise. I have everything going. So let me tell you, I completely agree with this. I think that that's not old-fashioned, and I think there are ways that you can not be alone with the opposite gender. I think that you can make that work. Like you can do business calls during the day. You could leave the door open. There's so many things that you could do, and just setting the precedent. So I remember when I was a youth, I had this experience once where I was at an activity, and I thought I needed a ride home. So I thought I went to this older male leader, and I thought, oh, I'll just ask him to take me home. And he looked at me and he said, well, actually, my wife and I made the decision when we first got married to never be alone with the opposite gender. And so let's see if we can go find another ride home for you. And I was like, wow. And I was 14 and was like, huh. Like, I had never heard of that or, like, heard of that commitment to each other. And I thought it was really interesting and really something that was novel. And I had so much more respect for him and his wife after that. And I was a little bit embarrassed because I was like 14. I was like, okay, sure, you know. And I think that that is something that is kind of becoming a lost art, but it's very, very important.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think I have to, agree with you guys that doing everything you possibly can, like Amanda, you were saying, sometimes at work, like sometimes it is inevitable, but there are ways you can make it better, right? Like if you have to have a meeting with a member of the opposite sex, and maybe it is confidential or whatever it is,
Right.
making sure that those are scheduled during like normal business hours when people are going to be around, and making sure that those don't get pushed to the evening hours or in kind of odd times, and when stuff like that happens. Because again, it's not so much that you're not trusting the other people or trusting yourself. It's just a defense, because where do affairs happen? It's when people have usually intimate conversations first. I mean, very rarely are people just jumping into bed together, just randomly. Like there's some sort of emotional intimacy there, and some sort of, relationship really that happens first. So.
Right. You're feeding that connection by spending time with that other person. And the less time you spend one-on-one with somebody of the opposite sex, the less opportunity you have to make an emotional connection, and then it could turn into something else. And that's what we're doing. We're trying to divorce-proof or safeguard and be proactive in our marriage, and avoiding that is certainly a way to safeguard.
Definitely. Any other ideas that you guys have about really safeguarding our marriages, other ways? Because I love these 2 points about, social media I think is just so key, especially in the world we live in today. It's just important. And I love that you never being alone with a person of the opposite gender. So any other ideas that you ladies have?
So one thing that my husband and I try and do is we really, really talk about our day, like in detail. And I think that that's important because sometimes I think we can be like, oh, my day was good. But if you you have to report back and be like, and then I had this conversation with this, and we talked about this, and it was great. And kind of coming from like a college situation where I was just me and a bunch of girls, and we'd all come home every day and be like, blah, 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 what happened with your day? And I saw this boy on the bus, and he was so cute. And, blah, blah, blah. and then to get married, and all of a sudden, men are very different in the way they communicate. So I was like, oh, so we really have to work on really talking about everything we did, and we went to the grocery store, and the kids were crazy, but then we saw the bananas, and they anyway. So it was just kind of just really talking about your day in detail. And not skipping anything, and sharing the joys and sharing the downsides. That strengthens your relationship too.
Yeah, and I think that, having that open and honest communication is really important, because I feel like secrecy is also a big part of when affairs happen. Is like, oh, well, I didn't tell her about, this one girl at work and how we had, that private joke or whatever, and so she wouldn't understand this other reference, so it's not, I think just really being open and honest. And even if, say you did make a mistake, you know what, I totally, we were just hammered at work, and I was alone with a member of the opposite sex. You have to have an open enough communication to be able to talk about that. And not instantly want to kill each other or judge each other or and I think that feeds also into what we're talking about with social media, is just that open and honest communication, because even though you might think it's nothing, it may be something, or maybe it is nothing, but at least you're in that habit of telling each other everything, because you're each other's teammates. At the end of the day, it's you two against the world. So I don't know. But, all right, let's see. Anything else that we would like to talk about in terms of, really keeping our marriages affair-proof?
Well, I think that I know I was going to get this one. But I think that making intimacy a priority in your marriage is certainly a way to strengthen your marriage, show love in your marriage, and making it a priority. If you're, and I want to say this, that often you can't control your spouse's actions. If they, you can do all you can to strengthen your marriage, but if you're not a team and working on it together, if your partner is determined to make some really bad choices, you really can't necessarily control those. And so I don't want anyone watching to be like, oh man, these are great ideas, but I feel so bad because we don't necessarily have this. But hopefully you can continue to talk about it and work on these and not feel, I feel like I'm beating around the bush and maybe not quite getting it, that if you can't control your spouse's actions if they do make mistakes, and not to beat yourself up necessarily about it if you're both trying to work on something. Does that kind of make sense? I kind of went off two topics here, Caroline, but...
Yes, no, I think I know what you're saying. Like, you do need to make, you know, intimacy a priority, because it is an important part of your relationship. But I understand what you're saying. That being said,
yes,
if your spouse were to do something, it's not because you didn't have sex yesterday.
yes,
it's not because you haven't been,
right.
you know, doing everything that you could possibly do in the bedroom.
Right, because sometimes there's this level of guilt of like, I wasn't enough, I wasn't doing enough, we weren't intimate enough, and that's not this. That's not necessarily talking about that. You don't have control over that. If you've got a healthy marriage and you're both working on it actively, then making intimacy a priority is something that should be fun and exciting for your relationship, and something to strengthen and show love in your relationship.
Yes. I think going along with that, I feel, I know this is a very controversial topic, so everyone can, of course, make their own decisions and, you know, follow what they, you know, think and, you know, believe to be correct. So no hate comments or anything, but I think just for me personally, too, the banning porn from your marriage and from your lives, I think, is also really important, because I just think the nature of porn is to find sexual gratification and trying to find that intimacy somewhere other than your spouse, and I think that can be a very dangerous road to travel, to get into that habit of, I can find this other places as well. I don't know. Thoughts, ladies? I know this is controversial.
No, I think you're going to find, I think that both Kat and I are on the same page. I think that it takes something that can be very special between you and your spouse and kind of destroys that, in a sense. That now that intimacy that you and your spouse had is somehow perverted into something that's not how it was intended to express love. And I think it's a dangerous, slippery slope to play on, and it forms addictions and breaks marriages, breaks relationships, and unpoisons minds. That we can't show love, we can't have affection, we can't have those things that we really need in our relationship, because this poison, this toxin is in our brains, and that's what we're thinking about when we're supposed to be thinking about our spouse.
Right. And just that difference of depth, you know, of something shallow and kind of hollow versus something real. But
Right.
All right. Well, I know we're running out of time, but I will be putting all of these links down below just after we go off the air, so you can read Kat's wonderful article, 16 Ways to Protect Your Marriage, if you're interested in even more ways to do that. And let us know down below in the comments and in the chat and on Twitter what you guys think, and what do you think is really important in terms of safeguarding your marriage. So... we are always here. You can find us on all of our social media down below. Come over and hang out with us on Google+. You know, because even though work oftentimes may block other social media sites, Gmail and Google will always be there, my friends. So come hang out with us on the brain break at work. But Amanda and Kat, thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate it. And we will see you guys next time. Bye.
Thank you for having me. It's an important topic. Bye.
Bye, guys.